News.
What you get for breakfast is something that, if we do our jobs right, you will wake up to news that you didn't know the night before.
It's a conversation. It's not just me and Eamon.
We want to get to know you, and we want you to get to know us.
From 6, it's Breakfast with Eamon and Isabel.
Monday to Thursdays on GB News.
Britain's news channel.
People in Britain, they love free speech, but they also love fair play.
I don't care if I'm speaking somebody from a trade union, from the Labour Party, somebody from the SNP. And I think the viewers like to see that actually we can challenge one another, but in a positive way.
We think we ask the questions that people want to ask, and often we ask the questions that we wanted to ask in Parliament but never got the chance to ask.
So join us every Saturday, 10 a.m. till noon on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Nightmare commute. Kick it up a gear with me, Patrick Christys, at Drive Time, 3 till 6 p.m, Monday to Friday on GB News Radio. You can listen online and on DAB+, on the smart speaker app and on the GB News app. And if you've got an Alexa, all you have to say is, Alexa, play GB News. We're also on TuneIn and the Radio Player apps. From the school run to rush hour, get revved up with me, Patrick Christys, on GB News and GB News Radio.
Tired of the usual focus-tested, pre-prepared Westminster runaround? Well, so am I.
So you want higher taxes?
Is your department to blame for this? Are you rethinking this policy? Every Sunday at 9:30, I'll be sitting down with those in power to get the truth about the issues affecting you.
Let's be honest, we've known about the cost pressures of this project for years, not months.
That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show with personality. On GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join us every night on GB News at 11 p.m. for Headliners, which is 3 top comedians going through the next day's news stories, which is exactly what you need, because when the establishment has gone crazy, you need some craziness to make sense of it.
Headliners. You don't have to bother reading the newspaper. We've got it covered for you. Every night at 11 p.m. and repeated every morning at 5 a.m. We won't send you to sleep like some of the other paper review shows out there.
So join us 11 p.m. every night on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome to Lee Anderson's Real World with me, Lee Anderson. Tonight on the show, I'll be joined by actress Louisa Klein and founder of the Israeli advocacy movement, Joseph Cohen. We've also got former Conservative MP and barrister Jerry Hayes, and joining us once again is former Labour MP Stephen Pound. And we've got a great new guest tonight as a military historian, that's Chris Newton. And looking forward to this one, we've got the dancing legend Christina Rianoff. But first, let's go to the news headlines.
Good evening to you. I'm Aaron Armstrong in the GB newsroom. The breaking news just into us. The Israeli army says its ground forces will be stepping up their operations in Gaza tonight, and they've advised residents to move south for their own safety. Live to Mark White in Tel Aviv. Mark, this seems the strongest indication yet that the larger ground offensive is about to begin.
I think some very significant news coming out of Gaza this evening. The IDF confirming that they have stepped up their operations to strike Gaza this evening. It's coming under very sustained bombardment as we speak, from shelling, from artillery fire, from tank fire, from missile fire, and from fast jet attacks as well. The local teams on the ground around Gaza are reporting that on the Israeli side of the border, tanks and armoured vehicles are moving towards that border area. The IDF have confirmed that they are going to expand their ground operations in Gaza tonight. We're getting reports as well that all mobile phone and internet connections have been severed into Gaza. And as you mentioned in your introduction there, the people of northern Gaza have been warned as a matter of urgency by the Israeli Defense Forces to get south of both northern and central Gaza to an area that is relatively safer. And we're also getting a response from Hamas with rocket fire as we speak, being launched into communities around the Gaza Strip and into those IDF positions that are mustering just over the border on the Israeli side.
Mark, thank you very much indeed for the moment. Mark White there in Tel Aviv, our Home and Security Editor. Now, the Met Police says there have been more than 400 anti-Semitic and 170 Islamophobic attacks over the last week in London. The force arrested 75 people in connection with the Israel-Hamas conflict. There are also 10 active investigations linked to internet-related breaches of the Terrorism Act. In the United States, authorities say they are following more than 530 leads as they try to track down an Army reservist suspected of killing 18 people in the state of Maine. They've named Robert Card as a person of interest. They say he's armed and dangerous. Divers have been deployed to search a river close to where the suspect's car was found. Well, this is GB News across the UK on TV, on digital radio and in your smart speaker too. That's it for the moment. Now it's over to Lee Anderson's Real World.
Welcome to Lee Anderson's Real World, and tonight I'm joined by Louisa Klein, actress Emmerdale, was it?
That's right, yeah.
Also joined by Joseph Cohen, who is the founder of the Israeli Advocacy Movement, and our secret Tory, Stephen Pound, ex-Labour MP. He's back on the show. Look, serious point, guys, let's get straight to it. There has been a shocking rise in anti-Semitism across the UK over the past 3 weeks. Louisa, you've got a story to tell about your family and your background. How's it affecting your loved ones?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. My background is that I am a second-generation Holocaust survivor. My mother was a hidden child during the war. And so my whole Jewish identity is based around this intense feeling of never again, never again. And I'm feeling now we are watching it unravel. It's happening again. It's unbelievably... So I suppose that there's a sort of simple, you're sitting there simply watching people that you respect, intelligent people, educated, intelligent people who you admire, and listening to stuff that's coming out that doesn't make sense. And we as a Jewish community are feeling lost, we're feeling left behind, and we're feeling extremely scared.
Joseph, we spoke earlier off camera about the demonstrations in London, about the scary scenes. It was scary for me, actually, last week on Whitehall, last Wednesday. As a Jewish person, how does that make you feel?
So it's terrifying. I have to start by saying the Monday following the massacre, the biggest massacre of Jews since the Holocaust, there was a celebration outside the Israeli embassy by thousands of anti-Israel protesters. I couldn't believe that was happening, so I went there just to see it with my own eyes. At the time the Jews were having a vigil and mourning their dead, there was a celebration. And I remember at multiple instances where I felt terrified. I'll give you one example. I was surrounded by a mob who realized I was Jewish, and they started screaming at me from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free, which is a call for the removal of the only Jews. It is a genocidal chant. And the police quickly recognised this is like not a good situation. So 2 police officers came between me and this mob who were screaming for me. And I was then chased into a cafe by a crowd of screaming Islamists, so extremists. These are people who support Hamas. This isn't ordinary Muslims, this is people who support Hamas and are celebrating the murder of innocent civilians. They chased me into a cafe, and when I was in that cafe, with a police row between me and the mob, a woman came up to me, one of the protesters who was inside the cafe came up to me and said, "Oh, are your people dead? Good."
Are your people dead? Are your people dead? Yes. Oh, good. Good. Are they dead? Oh, good.
And it was suddenly a realisation that this is not the country I grew up in. I come from a working class village up north, a pit village. I used to play in the colliery band. And these things were just—it's incomprehensible that there are people.
Stephen, this is quite chilling.
It is absolutely true. And can I say, what you said, about people who are comparatively intelligent. When I see that article in The Guardian last week about, they should stop weaponising the Holocaust.
Shocking.
I mean, what in God's name does that mean? But I'll tell you what really got my goat, Lee. I mean, I actually went along on the Sunday week, and the place was full. The socialist workers had their little stall there.
Yeah.
They, the Revolutionary Communist Party, and the lice on the body politics have come out blinking into the daylight. They're actually leeching onto this. I mean, what is it about anti-Semitism? What is it about this sort of hatred of the Jews that somehow brings all these people that blinking into the daylight, normally keyboard warriors?
But you say that, Stephen. When we see some of the protests, the demonstrations, the hateful language and behaviour in and around London, it's mostly London, let's be honest.
Yeah.
And sometimes it appears that the police are just stood there doing very little, or they don't know what to do in case they upset the wrong sort of people. Sometimes it's intimidating for them, especially last Wednesday when there's hundreds, if not thousands, of people against just a few dozen policemen. You think Khan's got a grip of this?
Well, no, I think, in all honesty, that what the French have done is the wrong thing. The French immediately sent in the CRS, they went in very heavy with tear gas, and they started lifting people. All that does is double the number of people. I think what the Met have done is they actually lifted about a dozen, I think, last week. Having said that, I'm not a Jewish person. I cannot imagine what it must feel like in your heart to actually see a banner that actually prophesies and actually proselytises for the genocide of your people.
And beyond that, we're seeing...
Would you want to see them all arrested for that?
Would I want to see them arrested? I would... Yes, I suppose I probably would. I would want to see...
100,000 people?
I don't know. It's a difficult question. You see posters of kidnapped babies. You see posters of kidnapped elderly people.
Oh, I know, with the Hitler moustaches drawn on.
The Hitler moustaches. People ripping posters off. This is where I would want to see action being taken, because this is vandalism.
I go even further though, because you said the Met have been very good on this. The Met haven't been good. Sorry, they've arrested a few people. They've done something. They only did something because of activists from the Jewish community and the broader, wider the community, who actually highlight this. One horrendous scene where there's an Islamist with an Al-Qaeda flag screaming "the Islamic State" while saying "May Allah curse the Jews." And the police, uninvited, tweeted under the original video, "This isn't an ISIS flag." Fine, it isn't. It's an Al-Qaeda flag. They then went on to say this is just a declaration of faith. Yes, it is. It's the
I'm saying as you, Stephen. I mean, obviously I've got lots of sympathy, massively, but it's the empathetic side that I struggle with, because I'm not a Jewish person. I can't begin to understand. You've got this nastiness, this evilness from the 20s and 30s embedded in your DNA. It's there with you. It lives with you.
20s and 30s goes back to the 12th century.
It does. But I mean, more recently, that's what you wake up thinking about.
This is living memory for me. This is my family.
And this started, I'm not making comparisons to the 1930s, but there were little things that are similar in the 1930s in Germany. I think that this hatred, this smashing up of shops and
Kristallnacht.
Yeah,
it's dehumanising a race, isn't it? It's dehumanising a group of people in order that something so atrocious can happen to them, and the general, normally moral humanity accepts it.
But isn't it depressing that you don't see huge numbers of non-Jews on the pro-Israeli demonstrations?
Absolutely.
You see vast numbers of non-Palestinians,
and let's be fair, Stephen, some of these are coming from the left.
Yeah.
These are coming from the left of politics. Like you said before, the socialist worker, the socialists.
Don't ask me to defend them.
The renter mob that seem to come out on every single demonstration. I mean, I don't know why they're not at work doing a proper job. All they seem to do is come out each week just demonstrating. Now, Joseph, you made a few videos on this, haven't you?
Yeah. And so one of my frustrations with the left is we always expected the left would have our back. The left cares about the vulnerable. The left cares about those that are susceptible to racism. Yet somehow the left is very passionate about microaggressions, misgendering people. But the massacre of 1,400 Jews, that's not worthy of a protest. That's not worthy of support. And so I think it hurts even more when it comes from the left, because you kind of expect that from Nazis, from extremists, but not those that are Medicare.
Stephen, you're from the left of politics. What would you say to Joseph?
Well,
on that?
until very, very recently, don't forget, from the foundation of the State of Israel, the Labour Party, the Israeli Labour Party was the dominant force for years, and now obviously, Likud and everything is taken over. Equally, on the left, we had a huge number of really, really famous Jewish MPs, Sidney Barnett, Silverman, people like that, Clinton Davis, great people. There now seems to be something very, very different on the left, and I don't know what it is, but it's almost an over-identification with the Palestinians in a way that is actually historically nonsensical, and ultimately it's demonising a group of people. Now, probably charitably, you can say, well, maybe people are trying to see both sides of the argument. The other thing is, of course, the large number of Muslim MPs, the way in which the concentration of Muslim voters in constituencies inevitably concentrates the mind. I don't care what you say. And I think, in some ways, the fact that the old Jewish vote, which used to be mostly Leeds, Manchester, and Golders Green, it is now much, much more spread out. I mean, certainly it's in Hertfordshire and places like that.
So, Louisa, I'm a member of Parliament. I stand with Israel. Firmly, as do all of my colleagues. What would you say to our government at the moment?
I watched Kemi's speech yesterday, which I thought was absolutely brilliant, where she gave this impression of the UK as being a place where we should be free to practice whatever we want in our religion.
It should be a safe
It should
space,
be a safe space.
happy place.
And exactly, I feel a lot of work that I feel very passionately about is about Holocaust education, and I think that it goes back. I keep going back to sort of previous Holocaust of education, and I think that you were talking earlier about your trip to Israel. I think people need to understand the history. I feel nervous coming and talking in environments like this because I'm not a political commentator. I'm not somebody who wants to comment on the deeply nuanced political situation in the Middle East. But there is no question that when you sit and you watch, and now because of social media, we are watching it as it happens, the massacre of babies, of women being raped, it is beyond imagination. It makes you question humanity. And I think that we have to go back to educating people so people have an argument that is based on truth.
Stephen, Louisa says we've got to question humanity. I think I agree with her.
I agree. I think what this President Hamas have done is they've kind of sort of out Al-Qaeda. I mean, it is just beyond horrific. But I mean, I think the point about actually banning the demonstrations or moving to, I think Mr. Justice Sedley said, the freedom to speak inoffensively is no freedom at all. We should actually cherish the right for people to speak offensively, but there has to be a cut-off point, a point when you start talking about, the river to the sea and all that business. And so I think we should be doing. I think Kemi Badenoch spoke quite well, but I think Keir Starmer's spoken pretty well.
I think, Joseph, we're going to come to you, give you the final word on this, because I know you're deeply upset over the current situation. You're a Jewish person. You're not ashamed of your background, your culture, your family. You're quite happy to promote it as well. I think you need to carry on what you're doing and don't be ashamed of your background, because you're a brave man, and Louise is a brave lady. But what would you say to people out there, especially government that's watching?
So two things. My family's lived in this country for centuries, and I no longer feel safe here. And that's deeply, deeply concerning. I think the police and the government are completely out of their depth. I've seen videos of Islamists screaming genocidal chants to Jews in front of the police, and the police being unable to recognise it. To come to your point about protest, I don't think the government would allow a Nazi protest to come through the streets with people waving swastikas, and we have to treat some of these flags and these people with that same mentality. This is a genocidal ideology, and it has no place in the UK. And if it does have a place in the UK, then the Jewish community have no place in the UK.
Where in the world would you feel safe?
I felt safe in Israel, which is hard for people to believe, but at least I know the state has my back.
We could talk about that
Eretz
all
Israel.
night. Thanks for coming in, Louisa. Thanks, Joseph. Thanks, Stephen. But look, coming up next on Lee Anderson's Real World, we've got Back in the Day with military historian Chris Newton. Do not go away.
We're here for the show.
More energy
ready this time!
Welcome to the Dinosaur Hour. I was married to a therapist.
And you survived?
I thought we were getting Hugh Laurie. Second best. You interviewed Saddam Hussein. What's that like?
I was terrified. I'm playing strip poker with these three.
Oh! No, thank you.
My CDs need to be put in alphabetical order.
Are you going to be problematic again?
The Dinosaur Hour. Sundays at 9 on GB News.
What you get for breakfast is something that, if we do our jobs right, you will wake up to news that you didn't know the night before.
It's a conversation. It's not just me and Eamon.
We want to get to know you, and we want you to get to know us.
From 6, it's Breakfast with Eamon and Isabel.
Monday to Thursdays on GB News.
Britain's news channel.
People in Britain, they love free speech, but they also love fair play.
I don't care if I'm speaking somebody from a trade union, from the Labour Party, somebody from the SNP. And I think the viewers like to see that actually we can challenge one another, but in a positive way.
We think we ask the questions that people want to ask, and often we ask the questions that we wanted to ask in Parliament but never got the chance to ask.
So join us every Saturday, 10 a.m. till noon on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Nightmare commute. Kick it up a gear with me, Patrick Christys, at Drive Time, 3 till 6 p.m, Monday to Friday on GB News Radio. You can listen online and on DAB+, on the smart speaker app and on the GB News app. And if you've got an Alexa, all you have to say is, Alexa, play GB News. We're also on TuneIn and the Radio Player apps. From the school run to rush hour, get revved up with me, Patrick Christys, on GB News and GB News Radio.
Tired of the usual focus-tested, pre-prepared Westminster runaround? Well, so am I.
So you want higher taxes?
Is your department to blame for this? Are you rethinking this policy? Every Sunday at 9:30, I'll be sitting down with those in power to get the truth about the issues affecting you.
Let's be honest, we've known about the cost pressures of this project for years, not months.
That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show with personality. On GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join us every night on GB News at 11 p.m. for Headliners, which is 3 top comedians going through the next day's news stories, which is exactly what you need, because when the establishment has gone crazy, you need some craziness to make sense of it.
Headliners. You don't have to bother reading the newspaper. We've got it covered for you. Every night at 11 p.m. and repeated every morning at 5 a.m. We won't send you to sleep like some of the other paper review shows out there.
So join us 11 p.m. every night on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
On Mark Dolan tonight, in My Big Opinion, Labour divisions on Israel are the tip of the iceberg. In My Take at 10, ITV and the BBC have embarrassed themselves with their coverage of the Israel conflict. This news gathering isn't as easy as it looks. We've also got broadcasting legend Nicholas Owen, my top pundits and tomorrow's papers. Plus, I'll be responding to the massive story of the day, that Boris Johnson has joined GB News. We're live from 9.
So my next guest is military historian Chris Newton. Chris, thank you for coming on my show. Look, we've got his poppies on. Yeah, this time of year, it's always a time for me to reflect on what happened, you know, in the Second World War and the First World War, especially because I had family members involved. If you go to the local war memorials in our cemeteries, there's some of my family on there from the First World War. And it's a day where we remember our glorious dead. And it's a day where we should remind ourselves that this should never happen again. But at the moment, we're seeing problems throughout the world, especially in Israel and in the Ukraine as well.
Yeah, it's extremely important that we wear our poppies and we remember the people who have fallen during the course of conflicts ever since the First World War. And as you said, the world is dangerous, and it's becoming increasingly more dangerous with Ukraine, with Israel, Hamas now. And we need to remind ourselves that we live relatively comfortable lives here, but there are other societies out there that have ideologies that aren't liberal democracies, and they want to impose their ideologies on others.
You see, this is the thing with these ideologies. They sort of creep. You know, they expand at sometimes a rapid pace, and they certainly did during the Second World War. Do you think we've not learnt our lessons from the past?
I think, I think especially over the past 10, 20, 30 years, I don't think we've sufficiently learned the lessons of history. Yeah. From my own experience, I have been talking for at least 15 years about the potential threat from Russia, and very few people were listening.
Yeah.
I actually worked for the Conservative Party in the late 2000s, and we were trying to highlight the threat from Russia.
So is it a case then, Chris, of people just thinking and saying that it can never happen again?
Yeah, I think people are, you know, we've experienced a period of, you know, prosperity, of relative peace, although we've had problems, and we've kind of fallen out of thinking that something like the First and Second World Wars could happen again, or some great power conflict could happen again. Especially during the last 20 years, you know, we've had people saying that, you know, the main threat's going to be insurgencies and terrorism, which they still are, but people have forgotten that great power competition hasn't gone away, and it's come back with a vengeance over the past 10 years especially. Now, this country has always been a safe country. Yeah, well, it has for the last 30, 40 years now, and I can remember the attacks in the 80s and 70s from the IRA. Always remember that as a young person growing up. But we live in relative safety at the moment in this country. Is it getting more dangerous, do you think? Yeah, I think it is. As you know, we've got Russia and Ukraine, and Russia has ambitions, you know, in Eastern Europe, and I don't think if it's given the chance, it would end with Ukraine. See, this is the thing, because I know a lot of people have a go at me about the money we've invested into Ukraine, about the defence, about the weapons, but it's so important. Yeah, and I mean, it's important, as I've said, if Russia was successful in conquering Ukraine, they have historical imperial claims to other parts of Eastern Europe as well. So I don't think they would have ended with. It's not just the imperial claims as well, because it's also that, I mean, Ukraine is a rich country where, you know, it's the breadbasket of Europe and parts of the world. It actually exports food to Africa. Yeah, and that's why, for example, what's happening with regards to the bombing of the grain silos and the blockade in the Black Sea is having an impact on everyone. You know, it's having an impact across the world. Let's talk about young people, Chris, for a moment, on the subject of war. So, growing up for me in the 70s, my granddad, he served with the Sherwood Foresters in the Second World War. He was at Monte Cassino. He went all through Italy. I can remember him telling me about the time he saw Mussolini. Who'd just been, I think, executed and hung, and he was hanging from a chain in, I think it might have been Rome, I'm not sure. But I used to spend a lot of time with him talking about the war stories, and so for me that was very helpful. I got that direct link to the Second World War, whereas our young people today haven't got that direct link. They might have had, you know, dads in Afghanistan or Iraq, but let's remember the Second World War was a big war. You know, there's millions of people killed. Do you think our young people sort of don't understand wars as much today? Yeah, and I had that direct link with the Second World War through my granddad as well. And of course the younger generations don't have that. Yeah. So that's why it's extremely important for people like me to be in the universities and to educate young people about military history. And that's why we need military history to be a central part of history courses in universities and also in schools as well. Yeah. See, I always remember my grandma as well. She was in the Land Army during the war. She worked out in Suffolk during the war, doing a bit for King and Country. And she came back and, you know, back to Ashfield and raised a family. But she had a story to tell as well. Sometimes she would come to London to see friends, and she experienced the bombing raids in London. And I would imagine, well, I know that today that's beyond our wildest imagination. You could not imagine this city of ours getting bombed and going into the underground and bunkers and stuff like that. So we should learn those lessons from the past. Yeah, and if you kind of read accounts from people in Ukraine, in Kyiv, for example, they thought that what they have been experiencing with regards to the bombing raids and the missile raids, they couldn't have imagined it, and yet they're right in the middle of it now. And you know, it could happen to us one day.
Well, it could. That's the wonderful thing about our country. You know, sometimes it's we're not a tolerant and welcoming country with the refugees that's coming from France. I'm sorry to keep banging on about it, but actually, when you look what we've done for the people of Ukraine with the financial support, the military support, and the fact that people, hundreds of thousands of people in this country have opened their homes up. We had one next door to me actually, a young family to bring them over to keep their women and their children safe. It just shows that it is real there.
Yeah, and we, you know, if the cause is we can see there's a real cause there.
Yeah.
The British people are very generous people.
They are very generous.
And that's what we've done with people from Ukraine and indeed from other conflicts as well.
Yeah, and then we see the problems in Israel. I mean, I didn't see that coming. Israel obviously didn't see it coming as well. We're seeing a lot of horrible stuff there. We've seen the videos, we've seen the press cuttings. It just seems again that we've not learned our lessons from the past.
Yeah, I mean that's again, it's another indication of a group with an ideology, with a firm ideology about how that area of the world should look like. And again, they people kind of over the past few years underestimated the capabilities of Hamas, and yet under the radar they've been plotting, planning, potentially with Iran, probably. And again, Iran is another one of these threats that we should watch and
no
look out
easy
for.
solution to this, is there?
There's no easy solution because you have Hamas, believe that the state of Israel shouldn't exist.
Okay, so look, to talk about that all night, Chris, thanks for coming along. That's so interesting. I hope we learn the lessons of the past. I certainly, have moments where I think about my granddad and the things he went through, the horrors of the Second World War. And I'm sure there were many men of his time that came back changed. I know some of the families talk about their relatives that was in the POW camps out in Burma. They came back mentally scarred. Some took their own life. Some were never the same again. And you could talk to my mates now in Uthwaite, where I'm from, about their dads and some of the episodes they had later in life, the breakdowns, the violence, the drinking, all the horrible stuff. You cannot imagine what they went through. But thanks for coming, Chris. That's so interesting. But look, still to come, we've got Right versus Left with barrister Jerry Hayes and Stephen Pound, former Labour MP. Do not go away.
I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my two comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
In a world of dull and predictable radio and TV shows.
Oh, hi. On Mark Dolan tonight, we've got big guests. We drill into the big stories of the day. The show adds up to a brilliant listening and viewing experience. Mark Dolan Tonight is the most entertaining current affairs show ever, and that's a fact. Join me, Mark Dolan, Fridays and Saturdays from 9, Sundays from 10. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
There's only 3 people you can trust in life. Your doctor, your lawyer, and your nana.
I'm not sure.
So join me, Nana Acquare, at 3 p.m. every Saturday and Sunday, where we discuss the biggest topics of the weekend. Be ready for battle. Could you be quiet? What is this?
It's my new teeth.
It's your new teeth. I don't bite. Well, not without a good reason. Always honest, always fun. Every weekend at 3 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
So Jubes and Kerr, we tackle the issues of the day with real, robust debate. Both sides of the fence, battling it out with me in the middle with my forthright opinions and views. And often really interesting things happen because you start with a position and then by the end of the debate you find actually, I might not have thought about that one.
What we need in this country is 2 new political parties.
You should maybe think about doing a 2024 calendar. I'm Michelle Dewberry and I'm keeping you company right through until 7 o'clock this evening.
GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's watching.
Join us every night on GB News at 11 p.m. for Headliners, which is 3 top comedians going through the next day's news stories, which is exactly what you need, because when the establishment has gone crazy, you need some craziness to make sense of it.
Headliners. You don't have to bother reading the newspaper. We've got it covered for you. Every night at 11 p.m. and repeated every morning at 5 a.m. We won't send you to sleep like some of the other paper review shows out there.
So join us 11 p.m. every night on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Who is it? We're here for the show.
More energy this time!
Welcome to the Dinosaur Hour. I was married to a therapist.
And you survived?
I thought we were getting Hugh Laurie.
Second best.
You interviewed Saddam Hussein. What's that like?
I was terrified. I'm playing strip poker with these three.
Ah!
No, thank you.
My CDs need to be put in alphabetical order.
Are you going to be problematic again?
The Dinosaur Hour. Sundays at 9 on GB News.
Joining me now is former Labour MP Stephen Pound and barrister Jerry Hayes, former Tory MP as well. Look, we're going to talk about immigration lawyers, and there is been some skullduggery, there's a little bit of crookedness in there. I believe, Jerry, I've been saying this for a while now, that some of these immigration lawyers are leading these asylum claims to basically lie on their forms.
They are lying. They are misleading the court. They are actually perverting the course of public justice. And if convicted, they will get an immediate custodial sentence, and rightly so. Now, the majority of lawyers, immigration lawyers, I do crime, I don't do immigration anymore, absolutely as straight as a die. If things get wrong and they attack the Home Office, it's because the Home Office, surprise, surprise, has got it wrong. It is not fit for purpose. But these people should be cracked down on. I don't think Suella was right to say this is a new initiative. It's not. It's an old initiative. It was something called the Enablers Task Force, which was set up months ago with no extra money. But these people, the minority, they should be stamped on, and worse, they are upsetting the cases of genuine asylum seekers, because once they're part of this conspiracy, that's the end of it.
Yeah, I mean, I dealt with hundreds of immigration cases as an MP in West London, and I think in some cases the more egregious lawyers were the ones who used to represent people from Iraq and from Afghanistan, cases against the British government, and in many of those cases they've been found out and quite rightly had their collars felt. But what really get my, I mean, and by the way, Lee, fair play to you. I mean, I think just about your second day in the House of Commons, you raised this issue.
I did.
I don't know why you didn't do it on your first day, but I mean, you didn't do bad.
I got lost. I got lost in Parliament.
But listen, mate. I mean, all the hundreds of cases, I could actually tell where they were from bucket shops above, fried chicken shops in East London, and it was always the same thing. You'd see over and over again. The asylum case would be refused, then the person would come back. If they're Iranian, then they say they're gay, then they would say they're Christian, and you could actually, it was almost like a cut and paste job. And I used to go to the Home Office time and time again and said, look, this particular practice here, they are giving absolute Mickey Mouse data here. They are winding people. And the thing is, they're taking hundreds of pounds. The Home Office did nothing.
But, Stephen, there is a reluctance, and I think Jerry will back me up on this, from certain people in the Home Office and people on your side of the political spectrum to admit this is actually a problem. And isn't it astounding that we're having to mystery shop lawyers?
There's a difference between lefty lawyers, which is a stupid thing that people are saying. Whether they're left or right doesn't matter. They must behave properly in court. They must not lie. They must not mislead the court. Those people are criminals. It's as simple and straightforward as that.
So you make an entirely fair point, Lee. Look, I mean, there are some people who will, they're so obsessed with social justice and actually, the problems of people who are asylum seekers, that they will actually give everybody else a free pass. I think we have to be objective, we have to be grown up and sensible. All I can say is nobody who's had anything to do with these lawyers would have any illusions about them whatsoever. They are scum.
And it smears us all with the same brush, because everyone just says, well, you're a criminal lawyer.
Well, it's like MPs.
You get
a wrong end of the MPs.
And believe it or not, the majority of MPs work bloody hard and actually tell the truth.
Yeah, some do. Anyway, let's talk about MPs. Let's talk about MPs, Stephen, because MPs have a problem with personal safety as well. And I know Jerry back in the day had some problems with Northern Ireland. I get threats. I have death threats on a weekly basis. I've got a few cases being investigated at the moment. So It can be quite scary walking into Parliament.
Well, on Monday, you're in the House on Monday. There was a very, very poignant ceremony took place on
I was
Monday.
there.
And fair play to you, because not a lot of people were. This was when the shield commemorating the life of Sir David Amess, who was killed by an Islamic terrorist in his constituency in Southend, was revealed. And if you actually look round the House of Commons, it's not just Joe Cox. There's an awful lot, and Mary Neave, a whole group of people. So I think sometimes people are very cynical about MPs. You know, they think that we're filling our boots or whatever. But in reality, I was Stephen Timms' PPS, and I was working very closely with him.
Sword, wasn't it?
Was it Samuel? No, that was the Liberal Democrat MP for Bath. But no, he got stabbed. This woman came into his surgery and in his constituency and stabbed him. But look, it is pretty terrifying, and I think in some ways the fact that MPs don't actually help themselves. But really and truly, when you look at Joe Cox, you look at David Amess, you look at people like that.
But Jerry, you had a tough time, didn't you?
I had a tough time, but not as tough as you guys did. Don't forget, I had no social media. There were no emails. Mobile phones were just coming in.
How long ago was this?
I'm old enough to be your dad, actually, believe it or not. We're both in our 70s.
Yeah, I believe it of him,
But, well, of course, he looks ancient, But no, I was in Northern Ireland Loft, so I had armed protection. That's one thing. And I tell you, a Beretta outside your bedroom door is the finest contraceptive you could ever have.
Really?
Oh, yeah, but you can't have sex, can you? But anyway,
I don't think that'll be broadcast.
No. Why not? There's nothing wrong with that.
There's nothing wrong with that.
No.
You're far too left-wing. You need to get a sense of humour.
As long as you had a silencer on it.
No, but I remember during the 1997 election, there was a fellow who threw a bag of flour at me, but it was from a tower block. If it hit me, it could have killed me. And then someone came out to me and says, yeah, you're that Jerry Hayes, and thumped me. So we've got this split second to do. And I know what you're going to say I did, because you'd be right. Either I ring for an ambulance or I call the Press Association. What do you reckon?
Yes, let me guess.
Yes, there we go.
So what did the PA
Call the Press Association. It's in the middle of an election. It's fantastic publicity. I know it's
Greatly
cynical. However, that's being flippant. You guys...
Was it a friend then that attacked you?
I don't have friends.
It was the Prime Minister, wasn't it?
No, that'd been John Major.
So you're right, because John Prescott had a similar situation with the...
Oh, he thumped me. Oh, John Prescott, you must have read it. It's ages ago. Right, I was on the Today programme with John. I was taking the mick a bit. He didn't have much sense of humour, particularly with Tories. And he comes up to me in the lobby. He says, "You Jerry," and I went, "Word." He mentioned the C word, and it wasn't conservative. And he thumps me in the stomach. I dined out on it for years. In front of Derek Foster as the chief whip.
So the Labour Party harbouring a bully back in the day, it sounds like it's doing.
Sounds a bit more than that, to be honest.
It's not form, isn't it? Because he punched that...
he threw a negative.
Well, so it sounds like GBH to me.
GBH.
But no, it's a serious point. I mean, the safety of MPs in this country is a real serious, because we're more in the public's spotlight now.
And you mustn't be cut off.
No,
you mustn't be in a vacuum.
No, Lee, that's incredibly important. I mean, I used to do like 2 surgeries a week, and I'd be there in the Greenford Hall with no security. I had a panic button. That was the idea. But I think the minute that MPs start hiding behind screens, hiding behind security, that is halfway to the death of democracy.
Okay. Look, listen, we're going to go straight to the yes/no quiz, because we've got you sat here. You're not the left in the corner today, although you still are the lefty. But I think we've sort of promoted you, Stephen, because you're getting these like right-leaning feelings, aren't you? And you're talking like a Tory MP.
He could become a vegetarian.
He could be, yeah.
Let's not go. I'm not going to read the Guardian.
Listen.
I'm sorry.
No one reads the Guardian.
5 questions, yes or no answer. If you want to go back on one, we can do. So the first question, I go to you, Stephen. Should we stop demonstrations around war memorials?
Specifically around war memorials, yes.
Yes.
So, Jerry, the next one for you. Should we frack our own gas?
No.
Absolutely.
Wow.
Bring it on.
Conflict there. Number 3, Stephen. Should life mean a full life term for child killers?
It does.
It does.
It does.
Yes.
It does. Number 4. Should the UK leave the ECHR if we lose the Rwanda case?
No.
Jerry, I'm shocked. Stephen?
Absolutely not.
I'm shocked. And number 5. Should the BBC apologise for refusing to call Hamas terrorists?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so can we just go back on the life means life, because there's a lot of confusion of this, Jerry, when it's in the press.
No, there's no in the press. I mean, you just can't believe a word.
You're a solicitor, so just explain. That's why I put it in.
I'm barrister. And I specialise in crime.
Yes.
And I deal lots of cases like this. You get a whole life sentence, and the whole life sentence means the key is thrown away.
Yeah.
Also, the other thing, when people say life should mean life, very often when you're given, always when you're given a life sentence, you actually can't be considered for parole until you've served that determinate sentence. And it's much more punitive sentences now than there was back in the 60s. My grandfather was murdered. The guy got 7 years.
Wow.
He'd get a minimum of 25 now.
Okay.
But you're saying, I mean, the minute we start talking about child killers, I mean, I agree with you. I mean, you know, child killers are just utterly reprehensible. But there's also, I mean, people who kill police officers and emergency workers. You know, I actually think there's a whole group of people for whom
they've got that as well.
Yeah. Well, I was just about
whole
to say,
life sentence.
Yeah, it does actually apply to police officers.
But Stephen, I was shocked. There was an outbreak of common sense in one of your answers earlier, which was
really?
True. Number 2, it says we should frack our own gas. Jerry said no, which is a shock.
I mean, it's almost I simply cannot understand. It's like you've got a suitcase full of fivers under the bed and you're just going to leave it there. You're not going to bring it out and spend it. Look, do we really want to be dependent on Putin? Do we want to depend on other countries for energy security? Yeah. Do we want to do what America does, which is now a net exporter of energy?
And we buy it.
And we're buying
fracked
gas from that. You know, I'm sorry, if they were fracking down the end of my road, I'd come down there and I'd cheer the diggers as they go in.
The reason is a practical one. There's not a lot of it.
We don't know, do we?
Well, we don't know. There's not. They've done surveys.
But if these companies out, Jerry, are prepared to pump hundreds of millions to invest in these fracking sites, then surely, I mean, they must know that it's there. If somebody knocked on your door and says, right, Jerry, we're going to frack a few miles away from you, and the good news is we're going to give you free gas for the rest of your life, would you accept it?
No, because I'm on oil.
Stephen?
Stephen? I'd bite your arm off.
Yeah. So, look, I mean, that's been absolutely fascinating. Look, still to come, we've got last orders with Christina Ryanov of Strictly Dancing fame. Do not go away.
Who is it? We're here for the show.
More energy this time!
Welcome to the Dinosaur Hour. I was married to a therapist.
And you survived?
I thought we were getting Hugh Laurie. Second best. You interviewed Saddam Hussein. What's that like?
I was terrified. I'm playing strip poker with these three.
Oh! No, thank you.
My CDs need to be put in alphabetical order.
Are you going to be problematic again?
The Dinosaur Hour. Sundays at 9 on GB News.
Tired of the usual focus-tested, pre-prepared Westminster runaround? Well, so am I.
So you want higher taxes?
Is your department to blame for this? Are you rethinking this policy? Every Sunday at 9:30, I'll be sitting down with those in power to get the truth about the issues affecting you.
Let's be honest, we've known about the cost pressures of this project for years, not months.
That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show with personality. On GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Patrick Christie's, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6. We tackle the day's news agenda like you've never seen before. It's high tempo, high octane, the most controversial topics, and the best guests. You will not be able to take your eyes and ears off it. I'm not afraid to ask the questions that you really want answered. 3 till 6 p.m, Monday to Friday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Now then, Lee Anderson here. Join me on GB News on my show, The Real World, every Friday at 7 p.m.
I'm not eating bloody cat. Are you
Delicious.
mental?
Open your mouth. OK. Here comes a train.
Reminds me of the scene in Singing in the Rain.
Adam, is that a good one?
Whoa! Join me at 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my 2 comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
GB News, unlike other broadcasters, isn't obsessed with the London-Westminster bubble. We think there's a nation beyond the M25, and that's why we talk about the issues that matter across the land. Join me on State of the Nation, 8 to 9 o'clock, Monday to Thursday, on GB News. Daisy's listening, and you should too.
In a world of dull and predictable radio and TV shows,
Oh, hi. On Mark Dolan tonight, we've got big guests. We drill into the big stories of the day. The show adds up to a brilliant listening and viewing experience. Mark Dolan Tonight is the most entertaining current affairs show ever, and that's a fact. Join me, Mark Dolan, Fridays and Saturdays from 9, Sundays from 10. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Well, that's Last Orders, and I'm joined by the lovely Kristina Ryanov. Zdravstvy.
Здравствуйте.
Как дела?
Хорошо, спасибо.
Хорошо. See, bit of Russian there. You didn't know that, did you?
amazed, no.
I've got one more for you. У тебя есть собака?
Есть собака, да?
Кошка?
Нет, собака.
There you go, you see, fluent Russian. Did a bit when I was at school many,
That's
many years ago.
amazing. I'm so impressed.
So
That's
look,
incredible.
Strictly, this is something that my mum and dad were glued to the screens watching every Saturday night. I know the missus used to watch it. Sorry, I didn't watch it. But yeah, they were glued to it. The nation's glued to it. That's
Of course, yeah.
sort of made your name. What was it like, Kristina, doing that?
My gosh, going back in my memories, it's been kind of like a big, old, long 8 years turned in one. It's like a big, fast train, and you jump on it and you just go and go 1,000 miles a second. It was absolutely incredible opportunity because when I finished my professional career as a dancer, it was a bit of I was only 29 and I was like, well, what's next? You know, I've done in professional dancing what I wanted to do. I can of course open a dance school, but I still wanted to dance myself. And I always had those creative juices to be a choreographer, you know, and I loved that. And then Strictly came about because I joined Dancing with the Stars live tour in America, where I was based. So from that tour, I was invited to do Strictly, and 1 year turned into 2, then into 8, and here I am many months later. But Strictly was incredible because it ticked so many boxes for me, because I loved performing, I loved choreographing, I loved that sort of feeling of creating something really unique and special every week. And obviously with 8 very different celebrities, again, it's always very tricky. You never know who you're gonna get as a dance partner. And I'm sure you remember the wonderful John Sargent
I do,
story.
yeah.
That was my first year, and yes, he dragged me famously across the floor like a sack of potatoes, and that's my claim to fame. But it was wonderful.
So how do you feel then when you get someone, you get a partner? I know this bit anyway, and they're absolutely useless. You think to yourself, my goodness, I can't work with this.
Yeah, I had a few of those, I suppose. But I guess in me was always like, okay, I have to dig deep in my creativity. And actually, I think it's much more difficult to teach the complete beginner and somebody who's perhaps not so able to really do all these different rhythms. And, you know, I love that, to be fair, because it was a good task, and I was a bit of a taskmaster, I suppose.
So we see some of them that come on, they actually lose a bit of weight, don't they, while they're doing it? So a lot of weight, some of them. I mean, you've got to be really fit to do this.
Yeah. Well, John Sargent lost 30 pounds during Strictly, and he always, after the show, he said to me, you know, you probably saved my life and saved me from heart attack, because he joined his with his brother swimming after the Strictly. He wanted to keep himself in shape. So it's a wonderful way to lose weight, healthy way, I suppose.
So dancing is your passion, obviously.
Yes.
I know you do a bit of yoga as well.
Yes, just a bit.
And I've met your daughter earlier. She's lovely. She's got a lippy on. And but you spend a lot of time now doing dance schools, training, going up and down the country, going to one of my favourite places, Blackpool. I know you're not so keen, Kristina, on Blackpool.
Yes,
but tell me about that, getting young people to dance.
I think for me it's so important to kind of pass the flag, you know, and pass my passion to the next generation. Of course, Mila joined my dance school, and I didn't think she would take into ballroom dancing. She loved freestyle and drama and so on. But now she's a seasoned competitor. She competes every weekend nearly. If I judge, of course, she cannot dance, so I have to kind of go every single week, either for her or for my school. And it makes me really happy, because I think it gives you a really good discipline and understanding in life that you've got to, for those trophies and medals, you've got to work very hard.
And it's very competitive.
Yes.
I see I know I've got some families in my constituency who are very big in the dance scene.
Yeah.
The outfits are incredible. You know, some pushy mothers, I think, sometimes, if they want their...
Dance moms,
Yeah, dance moms, they want their kids to be the best, but hopefully it's all in good spirits. But you've got to have a competitive edge as well.
100%, but it's a good competitiveness, because I teach all my students to be humble winners and also gracious losers, because it is what it is. It's sport, it's dance sport, and but I think it's life lessons you learn since a young age, and I think, you know, they're all friends, they cheer for each other, and it's a wonderful way, I think, to raise the kids, and especially now, because they're in digital age, it's all about that digital life, and if I can take the kids away a few hours a day from those iPads and TVs, it's my job done. And I would love, of course, Mila to stay in dance world, but if she at some point will choose something else, I'll be there cheering for her.
So what about, Kristina, young boys? Because I suppose it's more difficult to get young boys, because it's a massive thing, even at a young age. So Are we working around that?
Well, I must say, Len Goodman was a wonderful person to encourage, guys to join dancing. Mila is dancing solo. She doesn't have a boy partner. I really would love for her to find one. But it is hard. We have a lot of girls and very little boys taking to ballroom dancing. I do hope sometime we will see that times when things change and it will be kind of.
So I mean, for boys, I think boys sometimes think it's a bit girly to go into dancing, but actually, I can remember a few boys when my kids were playing football that used to go and dance and play football and play rugby and cricket, and it makes them a better all-round athlete.
100%. Actually, all of my boys, I have 3 boys in my school and about 60 girls, but those 3 boys, they're all into football as well. And actually, I'm very happy that the football coach is saying, keep dancing. It makes you really fast on your feet, your endurance, your breathwork, it's all kind of comes together, and, I don't think it's anything wrong for the boys being in ballroom dancing, and they learn to be gracious with the girls, just understand about competitiveness in different ways. And look, they have great role models. If they look at strictly at those wonderful professional guys and dancers, boys, and they all want to be like
I'll let
that.
you into a secret. A few years back, well, many years back, me and my friend went for the salsa lessons.
No way.
Yeah, but after 2 weeks, he asked us not to come back again because we were spoiling the enjoyment. Well, we weren't very good, to be
So
honest.
misbehaved.
No coordination. I just couldn't get the movements, Christina.
Yeah.
But what's next for Christina?
What's next for me? Well, I have a big So Yoga studios in Northampton, which we opened with Ben in 2019. Obviously, pandemic really affected us, like a lot of small business owners. But we're trying very hard to keep it going. And now I'm a senior yoga teacher, and I deliver my yoga teacher training to other people to become teachers. And I love that. I think something in me. I just love teaching. I love ballroom dancing. My passion to teach children, but also I love that yoga did so much for me, for my mental health and also for my physical health. It kept me away from all the injuries, on strictly anything in general and dancing. So more courses, more teacher training, and that's obviously my
And how do we get more boys involved?
Do you know what? Maybe let's have a shout out to those
Because your
parents.
daughter's looking for a partner,
I know,
isn't she?
she's 7, so any
she's
boys,
7, so any boys out there
7,
between?
8, 9, 10 years old, please let me know, because she would love to
And
do
is that in the
ballroom
Northampton
dancing.
area?
Northampton, yeah,
Okay.
Midlands.
Well, look, we've got you here for a reason, Christina. And not just talk about your dancing and all the wonderful work you're doing for children. We have a little bit of fun on this programme each week where we're pulling a pint.
Yeah.
We've got Chris is going to come back in. Chris, come on in, my friend.
Come on, Chris.
It's a simple gig. All you've got to do is pull the pump back, fill your glass, put it on the bar, and then Chris will mark you out of 10, then you can mark Chris out of 10. Let's have a bit of fun. You've got 30 seconds to pull the
Oh my
pint.
God, I've never
Come
done
on,
it.
guys, let's do
So,
it. Let's
alright.
go for it.
Ready?
It's quite easy.
Yeah.
It's quite
Ready,
easy. You go.
Steady.
Oh, dear.
Oh, yours are going really fast. Look at
Yes.
mine. It's really bad.
And the idea is not to
Well, I
get
don't
much
drink
froth in
anyway,
there.
so it's like,
oh, Chris is doing all right, actually.
Oh, no.
Right, put it on the bar.
Here we go. It's so much mess. I'm sorry.
Well, it looks, it's all right if you want to shave, isn't it? That it's not very good. So, how did you find that, Chris?
Not too bad, actually.
Yeah, not too bad.
You're like a professional,
You've probably
Look
got
at me. It's like
3/4 of a pint in there.
Yeah.
Christina, what's that?
I have no clue what this is, and it's all spilled over. It's absolutely what a mess.
Have you ever poured a pint before?
No, never.
Chris, you
Never.
poured a pint? Well, look, guys, I mean, that's been absolutely brilliant. I'm
Thanks
glad
for
you had a
having
bit of
us.
fun, but,
I know.
you've got to mark each other out of 10 on this. So.
10 from me.
10?
Oh,
to
thank
you.
you.
But I would give a 2 for myself for that.
I'd give you a 5.
You're very kind,
It's
Chris.
a bit harsh,
Thank
isn't
you.
it? It's a bit harsh, that, Chris, isn't it? So, look, that's great. That's on the pool. Christina and Chris, thanks, guys. Great to meet you, Chris.
Good to meet you.
Lovely to meet you, Christina.
Nice to meet you. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Thanks for tuning in to Lee Anderson's Real World. Look, next week it's more of the same, 7 p.m. next Friday. Massive thanks to all my guests tonight. It's been absolutely brilliant. But now we're going over to Patrick Christie's. Patrick, what's occurring?
Another absolute cracker of a show there, Lee. Thank you very much. It's an eclectic mix tonight, as you may have seen. Boris Johnson has been announced as GB News' latest signing, a star signing. Well, I've got his dad, Stanley, who's going to join me right at the start of the show. That should be interesting. The man who quite literally made all of this possible. We've got all the usual features. Fake News Friday. We've got as well Round Your Parts for the very best of local news, which this week sees a shocking return of the Somerset Gimp. Patrick Christie's GB News.
Hi there, it's Aidan McGibbon here from the Met Office with the GB News forecast. Further rain or showers for many of us this weekend, with some gusty winds around as well. But there will be some drier and brighter interludes, particularly across central and southern parts. Now, overnight, we're going to see a continuation of the showers. In fact, an intensification of the showers across some southern and southwestern parts. Some longer spells of rain pushing into the south and southeast of England for a time with gusty winds. Further showery rain pushing into eastern Scotland as well as Northern Ireland, and in many of these places with the ground very wet, there could be issues by dawn. Now, we're going to see a mild night because of the gusty wind, but in some of these central parts, northern England, into the Midlands, East Anglia, a few mist patches and some colder spots as we start off the weekend. Any mist and fog will lift, and then some brighter skies for a time, moving north across the country to affect parts of Wales, the Midlands, East Anglia, parts of northern England into the afternoon. But there'll be further persistent rain for eastern Scotland, could cause some problems at times this weekend, and an upturn in the wet and windy weather then towards the southwest later on. That pushes north on Saturday night into northern England, Northern Ireland and much of eastern Scotland once again. Further south, a return to sunny spells, but also some blustery showers. The showers heaviest and most frequent around southern and western coasts. We keep the showers going in the south on Monday, drier but cold.
Who is it? We're here for the show.
This time!
Welcome to the Dinosaur Hour. I was married to a therapist.
And you survived?
I thought we were getting Hugh Laurie.
Second best.